All right, welcome back, Colin's Corner, to our
How's it
first
going?
spoiler chat. Oh, it's going good. It's going good. It was a packed reading month for me with some real heavy
Oh
hitters
my
that have been
gosh.
priority reads on my TBR for years. Like I started the Greenbone Saga this month. I started Liveship. I mean, I've been thinking about
Yeah.
reading for years, so it's a big one, and this did not disappoint. And so I figure for anyone watching, we'll start out trying to be spoiler free, giving our just general reactions to Ship of Magic, and then we'll move into heavy spoiler territory for this book because we are first time readers of Live Ship, so we could not spoil the rest of the series even if we wanted to. But yeah, so in the chat or in comments, keep it spoiler free for the rest of the series, but feel free to comment about Ship of Magic as you will. All right, but Colin, what do you think of the book you just finished last night?
Man, it it was funny because where you were when we were doing our last when we did the reading sprint, I remember telling you, like, I feel like you're about to get to the part
Yeah.
where this book just took off for me, and once I hit that part, like, I was completely hooked on all the characters. Um Hi Anitha. And
Hey, Anita.
I loved it. I I think once we get into spoilers, we can talk about different characters and stuff like that we may or may not have liked. But I was worried about it not following Fitz. I think that's part of the reason that I put this series off for a little while, because I knew that I wasn't going to be reading Fitz for,
Yeah.
I don't know what, like 2,000 pages,
Yeah. Yeah.
whatever, however long this series is. But I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
Oh, great. Yeah, I felt the same way pretty much overall. Hey, Vaughn, the author of another book I read this month and loved, The Severing Sun. We have an author in the chat. Uh, just great start to a new epic fantasy series. Can't wait for
Yeah, I
book two to
actually,
do that.
Vaughn reached out to me after my last video I posted on the Wavy Dan, and he seems like such a really nice guy. I told him I plan on reading The Severing Sun very soon, so um, I'm
Oh,
excited to get
nice.
to that.
Yeah,
I know you have.
nice guy, and great author. Like I've tried a few new releases, and I've tried to check out the authors beforehand, and see interviews and get the feel for the person as well, because I like that. And I've been disappointed by a few books just because I didn't connect with the writing, even if I really like the writer as a person. But with Vaughn, I really connected with the story, which is has me excited. But and then we got a couple people in here. Hi,
Hey, Rogue.
Rogue. Have to restart Ship of Magic, but looking forward to it. Uh, okay, good. And then Chatty is in here for the Hoblove. Yeah, you're gonna
Hey,
get lots of
Claudia.
Hoblove because we both had great experiences with Ship of Magic so far. Oh, Rob in here. Stop in and
Hey,
say
Rob.
hi. Hello, and you didn't finish the book in time. Oh, so good. You're catching up on it.
You'll
And
get
Vaughn
there.
says, really reluctant to leave Fitz and Night Eyes too. Almost skipped ahead to Tawny Man, but a friend saved me from the mistake. Yes. So I procrastinated this series for so long, and I really enjoyed Farseer, and I did just want to continue, but I knew this is the next in the pub order and chronological order in the series. So I knew I needed to read this first. And knowing that it was Hob and that it was three chunkers that were multi POV epics, I knew it was going to be heavy and dramatic and tense
Yes.
and so I just was never really in the mood for it. Like I always just put it off for the last 4 years. And so thanks to Colin for organizing this buddy read together, because I don't know that I would have ever been in that exact right mood. I just had to rip off the Band-Aid and dive into it because it was just as heavy as I kind of expected it to be. And so it was I don't know when I was going to be in the right mood for that level of heaviness and this feeling of this epic literary tragedy going on so many levels. This intergenerational family drama and tragedy, and multiple coming of age tales that seem like they're tragic in their trajectories as well. So
there's
and
so much to unpack.
multiple villains or antagonists who are loathsome, and I had the sense that it was going to be like this going in. So I just had to rip off the Band-Aid. And you're right. When I was like 150 pages in, it was slow going, and I don't mind that. It was slow setup, but it was all felt really essential. And it was not until I think the plot really got going, when things got sailing out on the seas, that then it really picked up, and I just at that point really could not put it down. And I raced through.
Me.
Yeah, I raced through the last like 3/4 of this one, and then the ending stretch. For a while I thought it was going to be more of just a 4-star read, which is actually very common for me for first books of series, where I'm not so invested because I haven't spent that much time in the world with the characters, with the plot. Things are getting set up with the plot, and so often even really good book ones end up being 4-star reads for me. But by the end, I was invested. Like Hob hooked me completely and got me emotionally invested, as well as just this beautiful writing, really this plot convergence that I was a huge fan of, and so by the end, I actually did give it 5 stars. But it was just because I give 5 stars when I feel like I was engaged the whole time, and it was more of like that page turner that was gripping me and hooking me in and getting me emotionally invested as well. I felt that with this one, even if the emotions weren't always comfortable, or they weren't on the more like joyful side of the emotional spectrum.
Yeah, no,
yeah,
they weren't a lot. there's not a lot of feel good.
Yeah,
in this story, but it's bizarre because I feel like, where I was when we did our reading sprint is kind of how there by the end of the book, there might have been 1 or 2 characters that I liked, actually liked.
Yeah.
I did not like a lot of the characters in this book as people, but they were like, I enjoyed reading them, if that makes sense. They were amazing characters, but I did not like them as people.
It does make sense. I think it's important as readers to enjoy the full spectrum of literature, to be able to enjoy reading things that are unpleasant, whether it's unpleasant events because it's giving us a new taste of the human experience, or beyond the human experience, or whether it's characters that are unpleasant or that we actually wouldn't like personally or want to be around them or have them in our own lives, but that they provide another aspect to a story that adds drama, that adds tension and conflict, and that they are interesting to explore it in one way or another and make it worthwhile. And so I'm right with you. And that I think it's nice as readers if we can enjoy reading characters who we don't like, and that you're more limited, I think, in your options, really, and the types of books and characters you can read if you really just only want to like every character that you're reading, besides a few token villains here and there. But what's interesting is though that I do tend to prefer to read stories and books where I like a lot of the POV protagonist characters a lot. And so this was more of an adjustment where I had to kind of shift my mindset more towards that I was just talking about it, and being accepting of that even the characters I want to root for and like fully have these multifaceted personalities and flaws that are making them complex 3D believable humans, or non-humans in some cases, and just gave the read such a depth that I think is Hobbs' real trademark, and why so many people.
How she does it. After reading it, I get it. Like, I get why I'm so drawn to these characters, because they all feel so real. But I just don't know how she's able to do it in such a believable way with a ship.
And Vaughn mentions Kenneth being fascinating, unpleasant, but impossible to ignore. The very first chapter, we're with Kenneth, and in his mind, he's reflecting back on a time that he just offhandedly murdered. This is not really a spoiler. It's when we first meet Kenneth. He's reflecting on it when he just offhandedly murdered this craftsman who he had commissioned to carve a charm for him, because he didn't want the word to get around that he needed a charm and that he wasn't confident enough to go through life without this charm. And so I'm like, oh my God, like this, he is so loathsome and hateable. And Hobb made me despise this person because he came off as almost like sociopathic, or like almost psychopathic. And
yeah, he's insane.
Yeah. But then as you learn more about Kenneth, he had this rough background. You spend more time with him, and Hobb, I think, uses him almost as the comic relief in the book. And I ended up really loving Kenneth's chapters because I needed a little bit of relief from the family drama and the heaviness in all the other POVs.
Yeah.
And I actually loved his chapters, and he became one of my favorite characters. And definitely, anytime we switched back to his POV, I was having a good time. And,
yeah.
But I figure we might as well move into spoiler territory because we won't have to talk around anything at that point. So, if you have not read Ship of Magic, you probably want to dip out and maybe catch this later in the future if you want, after you've read the book. But we'll just go ahead and now it'll be spoilers from here on out. All right. So, anything immediately come to mind that you want to chat about? Oh yeah, and he didn't care about Surkor at all in that first chapter.
I mean, back to Kenneth. Like, Kenneth is like, I mean, it's just funny. It's when we first meet him, like, you're right. It's like anybody that rubbed him the wrong way when we were in his internal monologue, he was just like, oh, I'm gonna have to kill them.
Yeah.
They can't live anymore.
Anyone who's a possible threat. Yeah. Even people that are close to him, like who seem loyal to him, like Surkor and Edda, like he thinks like, oh, if they're getting a little too big for their britches, he might have to kill them. And he continually.
How's that what you jump to?
He continually did not understand people's own perspectives and motivations. Since he himself is unable, I think, to empathize or take other perspectives, he thinks everyone else is the same way, and so he's going through the world where everyone is as cutthroat and sociopathic as him. So he just does not understand when people are acting for other reasons, and it's just fascinating being in that perspective. And Hobb just does it tremendously in a believable way.
It's almost like he's like, I don't know if schizophrenic would be the right term. It's like someone will perform some act that probably has like nothing to do with Kenneth directly at all.
Yeah.
But he'll be like, oh, they did this. That probably means that they think this. And if they think this, I can't have that on my ship. So then I just have to, like, he just like convinces himself that all of these, like, he's so anxious and like, I don't know, like he doesn't trust anybody. Like it's really crazy that Hobb was able to create this person that is so like, I don't know, just I can't think of the right word right now. He's just so nervous
but he trusts,
all the time.
He kind of trusts this facsimile of himself that he has on his wrist. That is the charm.
Yes.
Who seems like a sentient being and its own person, and he gets confused because I think he thinks it's just a version of himself, but then he gets the sense, I think, as the book goes on, that it's not himself, and that's
interesting.
Like, the charm has its own personality, and it's just but he trusts the charm, and he trusts that this is like adding to his luck, and so this charm just adding in little tidbits throughout the book I just loved. And I think sometimes it was hard to tell in some of these scenes with Kenneth when someone was speaking whether it was the charm or Kenneth. In some instances, I think it was actually the charm and speaking when other characters thought it was Kenneth, and they were fooled into thinking Kenneth spoke maybe eloquently or with some charm, with a little bit of empathy, like a normal person. When it was the charm on his wrist that had spoken, and I just loved that the fantastical elements added so much spice throughout this book for me. Whether it was the charm with Kenneth or the live ships, the serpents, the Rainwild stuff.
The serpents, they're a whole other thing. Do you have like I
Uh,
don't really know if I even have any theories about them yet.
No, I I think Hobb used them in really short chapters as these kind of uh, really just suspenseful mystery elements to the book, where just giving us little glimpses into the serpent culture, and she went really far, I think, in developing a very non-human culture, which I love in fantasy when the
Yeah.
non-human characters really just don't feel human in any way, and they have their own weird history with memories that they're and prophecies that they're trying to call back to, and their social dynamics are very interesting. But I love that we just get short chapters, but throughout the book of them. And from the human perspective on the ship, they're just these killer monsters. But then
Right.
to go underneath the surface, and they have their whole own culture, and our empathy, and we can empathize with them, and I love little details like that. They have their own jargon, like the word for the sea is the plenty, and the word for the sky is the lack. I just love
Yeah.
little world building tidbits like that. And then Vaughn says he feels like comic relief Kenneth does, but she never makes him cartoony. He always feels fully realized. Yeah, the very second chapter we got of him, where he's in port and going to the brothel, I think Hobb gave glimpses into his backstory and life situation, and where he does have some things in his life that he, is sad about, and people that he is connected with in weird ways. But she really humanized him in that second chapter. After I thought he was going to be more of a cartoon villain in the first one, because
Yeah.
I
A
thought
mustache
Regal,
twirler.
yeah, I thought Regal in the Farseer trilogy was not a very deep, multifaceted antagonist character, and so I was pleasantly surprised that we don't really have that mustache twirling, cartoony villain so far in this series. And maybe Hobb is leveling up as she's writing with the antagonist. I did think that was the weakest aspect of Farseer for me, especially character wise. So,
Yeah.
I mean, we could talk. We'll probably go through a lot of the characters and chat about them. But one thing that everyone praises the character work and with Hobb, and for good reason. But I really love the plot of this book, and I didn't really know how the plot was going to shape up towards in the beginning. But as we see Kenneth and Sorkor making their deal together, where they're going to go after these slave ships, and Kenneth wants to capture a live ship, and we know that he has ambitious aspirations to be more of like a pirate king. And
Yeah.
then we see that Kyle, his plan is to get out of debt by taking on slaves. And once Kyle mentioned that he's going to Jamelia City to get slaves, I'm like, oh, the plot of this is really kicking into gear, and I can see where it's going. And I think it does.
Yeah.
The fact, I feel like it was set up in that moment that Kenneth is eventually going to meet the Vivacia and Kyle, and and that may be somewhat predictable, but I find if I can see a possibility and where things are heading, and then that comes, like, I had such great anticipation for that final convergence, and then when it happens, that scene was just incredible, and the ending and the
Yes.
way it converged, and the way these different POVs who had been always separate throughout the book end up interacting with each other in such a fascinating way.
Yeah.
It definitely exceeded my expectations, and maybe was the reason I ended up getting so hooked and giving it that 5 stars. But what did you think of the ending? You just read it last night.
Yeah. I just finished last night, and as the story kind of progressed, I think it was pretty obvious towards like maybe the 3/4 or like 4/5 way through the book that they were inevitably going to meet up based on Kenneth's plan to get a live ship and what was happening with the Vivacia at the time. But whenever we first heard about his plan to get a live ship, I wasn't actually entirely convinced that it was going to be the Vivacia, because throughout the course of the book, we're introduced to a few different live ships, and that made me realize, oh, okay. I mean, there's not a ton of these things, but there's other ones out there other than the Vivacia.
Yeah.
Like, there is the Paragon. Maybe somehow he can convince the family that owns the Paragon to like depart. Like, you know what I mean? Then we get to see the Ophelia. I'm like, it might not be the Vivacia, but then, as you said, as we kind of get further and further along, it becomes pretty obvious that these are going to converge. And man, like when that happened, Hall was able to do so many things with like 3 or 4 of the characters. Like I want to say Kyle, Kenneth, the Vivacia, and Wintro. With those 4 characters, whenever that convergence happens, she did so many things that like I didn't want to like feel a soft spot for Kenneth. I didn't want to feel a soft spot for Kyle, but I did. I didn't want to see Wintro grow up. Like it take him like there's so like I did, but I didn't. Like it was such a bittersweet, like I don't know, last probably 60 or 70 pages, I think it was, as we saw that coming together. And then even the Vivacia, I'm like, whoa, like how are you? And then I'm like, why do I care how a ship is emotionally affecting this boy?
No.
Like, how do you do this?
Yeah. I'm probably most emotionally invested at this moment, and maybe throughout the book, with the Liveship characters.
Yes.
With Paragon and with the Vivacia. Like, Hobb writes these non-human characters with such personality. They just jumped off the page, and because maybe they were non-humans and they don't have this, these human dramas attached to them, it just makes it maybe easier to root for them, and that they're like innocent kids in a way without and are on their own. They're kind of like, they don't have their own autonomy and freedom.
Right.
So many reasons why I think they're sympathetic, but you're right. At the end, I just had no clue how this interaction was going to go. I didn't know, was Kenneth going to kill Kyle? Was Kenneth going to die of he's basically on death's door from his own wounds at that point.
Yeah, he's literally a walking corpse.
Is the Vivacia going to be happy with a psychopathic new captain who's a pirate captain? But I was so curious, and it went in such a weird way with Wintro basically, trying to take Kenneth hostage with the knife. And I know that, Etta and Sorko weren't going to be happy about that. So I was worried that Wintro was just going to die in the scrum. But the Vivacia and how she reacted to Kenneth, who was trying to charm her, and she felt charmed by Kenneth. Like, oh, so good.
It seemed like the way the Vivacia reacted when Kenneth came on board that she knew of him, or was I crazy? I don't know.
I don't think I got the sense that she knew him.
Okay,
but just that she was charmed. Yeah, maybe. I can't remember because I read that ending a few days ago, so I can't. That might be the case. But
I was wondering if it had something to do with his quickened
the charm
wrist thing. Like I don't know. Are they somehow all? Because we learned that the ships could technically be a bit autonomous if they wanted to be. Like on the Ophelia,
maybe.
We learned that Althea learns that the ships could, revolt if they wanted to. So they can all talk somehow, or they have to be like passing each other. I'm not sure.
But
that last scene was crazy.
Oh, absolutely nuts. And it made me want to pick up book 2, even though I wanted a break from the heaviness of it. The last scene just made me want to pick up book 2 to see how this is going to play out now with Kenneth in charge of the Vivacia, with Wintro on board and Kyle. I want to see what's going to happen next on the decks of the Vivacia more than anything right now. But Vaughn was a little skeptical of the live ships, and then the skepticism was misplaced. Yeah, they are so fascinating because they are not fully kind of sentient until they're quickened, but they are absorbing the memories and the experiences of like what's happening on them even before they're quickened. And so they're like a little bit sentient. And so like she has this attachment to the family, but it seems like also that they do have positive relationships with certain people and their captains, and that we see that with the Ophelia. And so Robin Hobb gave with the few scenes we get on the Ophelia, she's, I think, showing this contrast of like, oh, this is in the ideal world, like people are happy on the live ship, and the live ship has this great relationship with the family, and they work together, and there's a symbiosis, but it still seems like there are some characters in the book who make comments about how like the live ships are like slaves, and but it's a multifaceted thing. Like it's not easy to wrap your mind around like what is their level of humanity or sentience. And Wintrow deals with that throughout the book as well, as he has this kind of monk training and this religious side of him, and he doesn't know how the live ships fit in to that religious order that he has lived with his whole life. So it's that, like the discussions they have and Wintrow's doubt about Vivacia's sentience or just place in the world is fascinating. And yeah, the way that they can affect the voyages too, I just love.
Wintrow, like in the beginning of him being on board the Vivacia, convinces himself or is like stubbornly convinced that the Vivacia just does not fit into his life, and that eventually he will he will just do this as long as he needs to get back to the monastery. And then like as you were saying, like as the plot line progresses and as his time on the Vivacia begins to like he's like how am I, why do I care? Like, why do I care what this ship is? This is not part of my plan.
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for Kyle, then I would still be a priest of Sa. Like, so I know, like, I love you, Vivacia, but I also don't know why I love you, but also, like, this is not permanent. But then, like, you know what I mean? By the end, he's just like, this is my ship. Like, you may be on it, Kenneth.
Yeah.
But it will never be your ship the way it will be my ship.
Yeah, totally. Oh, I'm curious. Is the audio sounding okay?
A little better, yeah.
The mic.
I don't know why it wasn't
better. A little farther back.
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't know why it wasn't crackling when we tried it earlier, and then all of a sudden it started to when we started.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll move the mic back a little bit. I'm still figuring out all this YouTube setup. All right, so Wintrow's relationship with Vivacia, really this very interesting through line of the book. Like at first, Wintrow, very understandably, it's just been torn away from his monastery, his life that he had envisioned for himself, which seems like his real true calling. Like he is perfectly suited to being this monk, and then to be ripped out of it and to be forced to leave it all behind to go sailing, which he doesn't want to do. But then he has this beautiful moment overnight where he connects with the Vivacia. And that's one of the most beautiful, just most purely innocent, joyful moments in the book, when he connects with the Vivacia and they feel like this kind of soul connection, and they're in this together, and it's a bad situation for them both. But the fact that then Wintrow does not just fully embrace Vivacia, that's the sort of character stuff that Hobbs surprised me with. Like, I'm like, okay, Wintrow's just totally going to be connected to Vivacia now and positive about it. But he continually has these religious kind of philosophical hangups with Vivacia after that. And sometimes still seems to be grouchy and, not acting so lovingly towards the Vivacia at various points. And just with this teenage boy character going through this whole existential crisis, I think Hobb did an amazing job with that. Yeah,
we've got I mean, I guess one of the plot parts that interested me the most, but we didn't really get to see a lot of, but I think will be important later on in the series, is basically what's happening back at the Vestrit home. Like they've obviously got Wintrow, who's going through his own growing pains, and then they're dealing with Malta, but at large in Bingtown, they're kind of dealing with this satrap who, I don't know how to pronounce that correctly.
No, but, I think that's right. Yeah.
The satrap is just like deciding to go against everything that their predecessors agreed upon, and it's just basically all these old time, like they reminded me of just like the blue collar workers who used to be like the backbone of the country, but now like their ways are getting taken away from them and they don't have control over it, and they just have to kind of deal with it. And like it puts Ronica specifically once once Ephraim passes away, like it puts her in a very difficult position because I mean she's kind of the whole reason that they're like on the brink of losing their live ship.
Oh yeah,
But she
no,
didn't do it maliciously to Althea. Like
yeah,
she's scared. Like she's got
yeah,
so much to deal with, and it's like the mother figure who can't show the kids quite how bad it is yet. She needs to pretend like things
yeah,
aren't quite that. And then like slowly but surely things get revealed, and the entire family realizes like, okay, things are not great right now. Like,
yeah. Oh my God, the Vestrit family drama is at the heart of the book, and it affects everything besides maybe the Kennett story and the storyline. But
yeah,
it was so heavy. Like I almost want to read like a live ship fan fiction that takes place earlier when Ephraim was just the captain and Althea was a deckhand, and they're having a great time
yeah,
going to different ports and sailing together, and the family's all doing good and positive vibes are everywhere. Like Hob starts us out where the patriarch is on death's door
yep,
when the future of the family is so up in the air and everyone's miserable, and it's just like the opposite of cozy fantasy vibes, where you just feel like this immense tragedy is befalling the family at this very moment, and that's where Hob drops us in. And so there's so many things to chat about here, but Veronica does seem like a very sympathetic motherly figure, and she's holding down the fort at home. She's been given a lot of responsibilities to manage the lands without much help, but she and Ephraim, I think, both got hoodwinked or fell prey to not understanding their own son-in-law well enough. Like they just didn't know him well enough to think that he would be this savior of the family, or the right responsible figure to control the family going forward and to control Vivacia. And as the book goes along, Veronica is being enlightened by Kyle's just completely abusive behavior towards everyone in the family, and which he probably kept in check when Ephraim was around. And then how he just doesn't understand the culture of Bingtown and the trader families, and he doesn't understand the ships and the live ships. And so she didn't realize that all of these things were making him a terrible choice to bequeath the Vivacia to. And she also didn't, I think, really understand her daughters very well. Like she seems to not realize until the middle of the book that Kefria is not up to the challenge of running the family and to standing up to Kyle.
no,
And then she also thinks that Althea is just maybe like going through a boy phase, and that she'll be better off not on the ship and being married off. Like she and it just, the way that people throughout the book and society want to adhere to these gender norms is really frustrating, but also very believable for how societies act. But she doesn't seem to fully understand Althea, and because Althea has not been with her, she's been out with her husband out on the ship like her whole life.
yeah,
So she doesn't really understand Althea. She doesn't really understand the Vivacia and the bond to Althea, but she starts to understand that as the book goes on, and tragically realizes that she's made horrible decisions to give so much of the family over to Kyle and Kefria. But like that was just unbelievable family drama that we saw playing out through this. And it's just so many things that just leave you so frustrated, and not so much with Veronica. She's also a very sympathetic character who seems to be doing her best, but she just got saddled with a son-in-law who is very self-centered and narcissistic, abusive, and different culturally in an interesting way, because what's happening culturally overall in this world is very interesting also, because it's like the Bingtown, it feels like what? Like it's like 1700s, like 1800s, like kind of society culture.
yep,
And so it seems pretty modern and developed. This like sailing era, like I don't know, kind of early modern era for us. But they're under the control of the satrap, who is trying to bring back slavery and to
yes,
to spread slavery. It feels like the society is going backwards in a lot of ways, and this satrap is this very irresponsible, completely just self-centered monarch who is now in charge, and maybe before things were more responsibly run, but now everything in the society feels like it's just crumbling, and the people don't want to realize that. But as the book goes on, I think there's the Bingtown traders seem to be ready to maybe start to resist the satrap and fight back and be ready to go independent or even go to war if they need to. And so it's this, and we just get little hints of that overarching kind of societal plot.
Yeah,
but I found that very fascinating.
I definitely agree with that. And the other thing, like, as far as like with the Vestrit family, and again, the Hobbs could work. She has this way of, putting it's similar to how it is in real life. Like, we have idols, we have people in our family or around us that are in society that we put on a pedestal. And so we're introduced to all these characters like, okay, Veronica is the head of the family at home. Like, she's the mother figure. Ephraim is this, fun but respected captain at sea. We think Althea is just like the fun, like more living life on the wild side, like sister. Like, it all feels like, but then slowly but surely we get all these backstories about how these characters have made decisions over the years that make them more human. Like,
Yeah.
Ephraim was just a guy that believed in something, like not trading up the Rainwild, and was so stubborn in that belief and could have had his family out of debt.
Yeah.
We learn all this later. Like, we think of him as this, unfortunate but like highly respected guy, and it's really like he kind of reminded me of like a lovable but a very grumpy and stubborn old man that they don't
impractical
get with. Like, just, you could have, like, all this work you're putting Ronica through, like all this stress, all this anxiety the family is now going to have to inherit when you pass away, like, could have been avoided years ago had you just explained why
exactly.
you didn't
not
want
even
to,
explain,
like, it's
not even explained why, but it feels more like a family superstition because he's, that they had family members, or do we know why? But they think that like the plague that killed a lot of people in Bingtown, I don't know if they had brothers. Did they have sons that died to that?
They had,
plague?
They did.
So I think they hint that that's the reason why Ephraim has this huge prejudice against going up the Rainwild, and it seemed like that plague killed a lot of people in Bingtown, and all the other Bingtown traders still trade up the Rainwild River, and that the Rainwild people, while they're very gruff and they hold to these very strong, contracts and codes of behavior, they seem totally reasonable and like they have a normal, functioning society over there, and they might have health problems that make them look uglier, but it seems like that family superstition is misplaced and just a stubborn thing based on the trauma maybe of losing those kids.
Which is real. I get it.
And that makes sense. It makes sense, but if all the other Bingtown traders are doing it, then it's not something that seems very rational at that point. Like, it does seem like it's irrational, and he is definitely leaving his family in a terrible position when he dies, and in a spot where Kyle does not seem psychopathic. He, to me, is this character who feels like he's very pragmatic, like almost the antithesis of Ephraim, who is the idealistic, ethical, moral person who lived by ideals and morals. But Kyle's very pragmatic. He feels like he sees the debt, which is real for the family, and he feels like the only way is to make more profitable trade, and the only more profitable trade is slaves. And so he feels like this is just purely a logical step. And when I think we get a perspective of Keffria, maybe when Keffria is just chatting with Kyle late at night, and that really humanized Kyle for me. He wasn't just like this monster. He seemed to actually care that Althea had just like a stable life, and he was being really hard on Althea because he feels like she's just going in the wrong direction. And it's like that that humanized him in a very interesting way. But he is just this pragmatic antithesis where, he's going to do what he thinks is right. He's not going to really listen to other people and consider all sides to the situation. He's not going to go out of his way to try to understand about how the live ships work. And so like that whole plot line of him going off and turning the Vatia into a slaver is just so dramatic and tragic for so many reasons. And then we get like a slave narrative out of that was just harrowing stuff, where slaves are inside the hold of the Vatia. He's like, oh no, don't worry, we're not going to be like those other slavers. It's just going to be artisans and that we're not going to have bad conditions on the ship. And then he might have believed that. Like, it feels like he is just one of those classic thoughtless narcissists who like believes what he's saying, and then ends up doing things differently, and like, so like he ended up turning the Vatia into a classic slaver with terrible conditions, so Kyle is his own very special case in this book, like so hateable, but also complex and multifaceted, and also sympathetic in some ways. So credit to Hobb for really these deep villains and antagonists in this book.
Yeah, I think Kyle, obviously, for sure, is the most hated character. I think you're right in that Kenneth is just kind of like an actual insane person. Like his thoughts do not always align with like reality. He just has these fantasies where like this person doing something like, okay, they have like, okay, Kenneth is, like you said, he's a bit of comic relief, although he's a serious character, but Kyle is very calculated. Like I think he knew what he was doing all along. Like he saw this way before Ephraim was actually on his deathbed. So he got into their, like, he, you know what I mean? That's probably why he tried to court Kefria in the first place. Like, he saw an opportunity to get his hands on a live ship, and she was kind of, she's not dumb, but she's kind of a bit oblivious to
naive.
She's realizing
she thought it was a classic love story, and that Kyle's a great person, and when we get in her perspective, and Kyle makes just offhand comments about their courtship, and she was like, oh my god, those are some of the most special moments of my life that he is now ruined, and he's not the knight in shining armor that she just idealized him to be. That was so sad, devastating. But Chadia might be right here that Kyle wanting to control Althea might be just very calculating for his own position, because like he's constantly talking about the family's reputation, so maybe he doesn't care about Althea at all, except for how it reflects back on him as a part of the family. Yeah, you might be totally right about that, Chadia.
Yeah, and I mean, like, he... Go ahead.
Oh, no, Vaughn says we don't want to care about Kyle, but we just want to loathe him, and Hobb makes us see more. Yeah, just that is the depth here of the character work.
He's got this interesting thing where he at face value, he understands what the importance of a live ship in a Bingtown trader family is to this culture, but he doesn't really understand it. He just understands, like, he understands that he can't mess this up, essentially, is all it is.
Yeah, this is his chance to climb the economic and social ladder. We don't get too much about his family background, but he was, from outside Bingtown, and it seems like, he is in a better position from where he was, and that, Bingtown traders are very well respected and have access to the most lucrative trading. So I think he does view this whole situation as his great opportunity, but he tries to turn it into, it's always this tragic situation where he's saving the family, but he's really just trying to turn things to his own advancement.
He's almost gaslighting all of them. Like, that's like kind of like what Chadia was saying. Like, he's like, he's making them all think that they're insane for thinking that he wants this. That he just wants the ship and he just wants the power. He's making them all feel like they're insane, and that, like, it's so hard to describe, I guess, in a way, but like he does, I think, truly care about the power and much less about the family than he's letting on. Obviously,
Yeah.
I mean, we get his point of view, we get to see that, but like he's making them think, how can you think after all this time I spent with Ephraim, and I'm clearly trying to, like, we're giving some money to Althea. We're not taking things away from her. We're making sure that she's okay, at least. Like, she just can't
Yeah.
be on, like, you know what I mean? Like, he's making everybody feel insane about, like maybe he is a good guy. Like, I can't really tell.
And then he also gets in the way of Kefria trying to be a responsible mother to Malta, and he just wants to spoil her. And I think we get glimpses through Malta's perspective that she has been extremely harmed by absent parenting and just being raised by like the nannies, and just not, everyone's been ignoring her because they've had bigger fish to fry, and she's just been left to her own devices with her friend, and to just grow up without any actual parenting and mentoring. And she essentially almost has no moral code that she's living by. It's just this teen who's going through life in a completely self-centered way. But I want to get back to this comment. There's one thing that speaks for Kyle. He is part Chalcedean. Knowing that culture, understand why he's like that. We'll see more about them in the next books. Okay, so he is part Chalcedean. Yeah, because they're a culture that's much more okay with the slaves. So that actually makes sense. But yeah, the way that Hobb does, cultural backgrounds really having a big impact on your worldview and your perspective is really true to life, I feel. And yeah, that he's that outsider from the big town culture, I think has a huge effect on things. But it's Althea that doesn't get fooled by Kyle. Like, she's always, like, Kyle's always she's always seen through him. And it's just so tragic that we're seeing Althea just get completely sidelined. And we can also see that like through Althea's eyes that she's probably right about Kyle, and that she doesn't get believed by the people in her family, that she gets sidelined. Like, it feels so tragic because we know that she's probably correct, but she's also self-centered in her own ways. And that she maybe thinks she was ready to be the captain of the ship, but then she realizes when she goes off to be the undercover ship's boy and actually learn Athel, and she learns sailing from like real sailing. She realizes that she wasn't ready, and that she did overthink. She did, she had
she was in over her head, baby.
Yeah. And so she's starting to learn that maybe she wasn't ready. And she also, with her interactions with Brashen, we realize that she's also very self-centered, that she's not thinking about like, oh, there's this guy who, I might be interested in, but she's not ever thinking about his feelings or his worrying about him. She's so self-centered and caught up in her own situation. And I think the way that Hobb, complicates even who's supposed to be the maybe the purest protagonist of the trilogy, the way that she has flaws too, just really also gives her that three-dimensionality and so much depth.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant early on when I said, like, there's almost no characters that I really like. Like, they all the characters, there's obviously ones like Kyle and Kenneth who are just kind of, I mean, they have characters with a lot of depth, but all of the characters do things that really irritate me. Like, they make decisions that are extremely frustrating and seem like self-harm or like self-sabotage. Especially with Althea, like, she is operating so much of this book, and many of her actions are so emotion based and reactive instead of responding to the situation. And then, like, it seems like months later, she's like, I probably shouldn't have done this way. Like, I have now wasted a year. If I would have just talked and like went and talked to a live ship or something, like, whenever Ophelia's like, oh, we could just like revolt. She's like, I wasted a year of my life being angry and trying to do this, like, this pipe dream thing where if she got this one token that said she could sail a ship. She could then try to go to the council, the Traders Council, and like it was such a long shot, and we even knew that.
To get Kyle held accountable for just like some random thing he said in anger. It always felt like a complete pipe dream. Although that put Althea where she, I think, needed to be to have her character growth, where she could learn that she needed to mature and grow up, and she wasn't ready to be the captain of a ship like that. While it was, just evidence of her impetuousness and this emotional response to things, I think it really was nice for us to see her out and about and away from the family drama, and also interacting with Brescian, who's a character that I really liked, and he's just this named very aptly, because I think he's this very just gruff, brash. Maybe that's not the right word for it, but he's just this very gruff person. He's been given a lot of blows in life, but he seems like he's always trying to do good, do the right thing, and he has this growing crush on Althea, and then he gets pretty disheartened with how Althea treats him by the end. But that'll be interesting, because I think those characters will probably continue to cross paths. I'm curious to see what happens there. Vaughn says, Malta, there's a journey ahead. I'm glad to hear that. Once we really got a sense for who Malta was, that she is just in her little teen girl play acting drama of her life, she wants to do this courtship with the Rainwild person just for to share it on social media and to have something to chat about with her friend. And meanwhile, it's like this life or death contract situation with the Rainwild people. And I was just like, oh my God, Malta is maybe not her fault because she didn't have parenting really, but she needs to grow up, and maybe getting sent to the Rainwilds would be the best thing for her. So I almost I expected maybe by the end of this book that she would be sent off to the Rainwilds, but Kefria and Ronica still didn't want that to happen, and we're holding on to her, and which is
I have some theories on Malta. I mean, I did not her and Kyle were some of the most frustrating characters to read because of how unyielding they were in their stubborn ways. However, I mean, and Malta is very shallow-minded. She's very, like you said, all about the appearances and the stature of where she inherited this gift that she can't stop thinking about, the flame jewel or whatever. However, as much as she annoys me, she actually exhibits to me the most traits that would make her, if she could get on the right path, probably the best choice for the next female figure of the. I mean, she's very smart. She thinks through things. She thinks through things at more of a depth than Kefria does.
Yeah.
So if she could grow into really caring about the family, I feel like she could get a handle on things, but she's so caught up in the wrong things that you just want to wake up, grow up.
Oh, so cringe. Oh my God, the perspective writing, Hobb does multi POVs so well. Just we really feel like we're in the head of a teenage girl who's just obsessing about her social status and just the stuff around that harvest ball where she goes behind everyone's back to get her own dress and the makeup and everything, and then she gets taken home, and just that whole plot line and those scenes are so cringy. I agree, Chad. Yeah, and just hard to read at times. But you understand still, and you're able to empathize because this is just a girl who's been really sheltered and basically with absent parents, and is just hungry to experience other things outside of her family drama and her house, and to grow up fast and get out of her childhood. Those are all very understandable motivations, and So she a great character, and just I am curious to see what's going to happen with Malta.
Yeah.
I am thinking, my prediction is that she ends up having to fulfill the contract with the Rainwild people for her family. They're going to come up short on the next debt payment, and she might meet. So she has the date set up to meet the guy, and she expects to like just brush him off when they meet. But I think she's actually going to be intrigued, and my prediction is that she will go off to the Rainwilds with him, and we'll see the Rainwild situation. We'll get a view into the Rainwild geography and culture and the place through Malta, and that's just my guess about what might happen. That could be way off.
No, I don't think you're far off. And the other really interesting whole other thing that you and I don't know yet, like at this point in the series, is that Ronica and everybody at home are really banking on Kyle coming home with money. They don't know that isn't going to happen now. Like,
yeah.
I mean, think about that. Like, they have no idea what's going on in the Vivacia right now. They think that he's about to be home in port somewhat soon with, some loot from trading whatever the slave trade. Like, they think that he's coming home and is going to be able to help them get out of this a little bit.
Oh, yeah.
I don't foresee that happening now.
I am so curious how they're even going to learn about what happened. Like, how is the news going to spread that the Vivacia was overtaken? And I that is going to be a huge upheaval for Ronica and Kefria, and that's why I do expect them to have to pay off the debt. Like once the other Rainwild person came and offered to get rid of the whole debt if they gave over Malta, I was like, oh my god, solve the whole family crisis and get Malta out of here. Like just that's solving two things at once. I was just hoping like, yes, do it. But then of course Hob never lets us take the easy way out with these things. No. It's like, no, like of course the grandma and mother don't want to send the Malta away and just want her to have more autonomy and control over her marriage, and they set it up so she'll meet the person and be able to decide for herself if she wants to do the whole courtship thing. But like, yeah, that was so intense when they offered that, and I'm like, oh my god, they got this get out of jail free card. But now they didn't take that, and the Vivacia's not coming back with the money. Oh, I'm so curious.
I have no idea what's going to
happen. Kyle is now just like a prisoner in that ship. He's being awful to Wintro, who's like binding his wounds, and Wintro is still just being this amazing son, being like, I want to save my father's life, even though he shows no real love for me. He saved his father's life. He saved Kyle. That was touching. And
I mean, Kyle's literally taunting him as he's like wrapping his ribs. He's like, "You hate me, don't you?" And Winchow's like, "No, I don't." Like,
oh my god,
you're my father.
Oh yeah, Chatty mentioned here just to come to this comment that everyone has their faults. Brashen is an addict. Yeah, Brashen doesn't seem to want to admit to anyone that he has a problem with the Sindin, but seems like he might. But yeah, even Brashen is not as I think open and kind and nice to people as he could be in a lot of those scenes. And so yeah, he's not the easiest character to root for, but he does seem like a solid person who you would still want in your corner. But yeah,
I think for me on my read through, Wintro and Brashen by the end were the most likable characters. I don't know if that differs for you, but Brashen is a guy that was extremely loyal to the Vestrit family for years, and because of his own decisions, like maybe because of his addiction, we don't know exactly how deeply seated this addiction is, but I mean, this is a dude that captained, or what was he like, the
first mate, I think,
the first mate of something. He was basically Ephraim Vestrit's next, his right hand man, and he's got nothing to show for it. Like, he spends all of his money every time he comes to port, and he's by, you know, the time that we meet him and after Ephraim dies, like he's having to take on these odd jobs. Like he has no, he's basically like he's just got to take work when he can get it because he's broke all the time, and like it puts him in these. It's hard to not to feel for him because, you know, well, he's in this position where he's thinking like, oh, what do I have to show for my like basically lifelong dedication to a single ship? Like nothing. I should have listened to Ephraim when he told me not to. I should have been squirreling some money away, like so that I could make decisions when I got older and didn't want to do this anymore. Like, but I didn't listen, so here I am. Like,
oh, this is just a perfect example of how this series just hits so hard and heavy in a way that feels very real world adjacent, and that a lot of fantasy series don't go into that type of thing, like you know, someone on a ship and their economic reality. Like that's the kind of thing that a lot of fantasy just focuses more on, just, you know, the plot at hand, and doesn't go into all these different facets of living in a, you know, our kind of world, and all of the hardships that arise because that, whether it's disease affecting the family, or the debts and people not saving enough and being outcast from their families. It's like Hobb puts in so many tragic aspects of our own world, in this fantasy world, which is, it makes it so heavy. And I knew that this series was gonna hit hard like that, so that might have been part of the reason why I was procrastinating it so much, because I do also love to read for kind of escapist reasons, and to go to another time and place that feels very different from, you know, our own society and civilization, and the things that I worry about in my life. And reading is a nice chance to escape from all of that sometimes, and to transcend that and have these heroic journeys against clear, you know, evil or bad situations, and that, you know, you can are more simple than the real world. And I actually enjoy that a lot of the time. And here we don't get any simplification. We get, if anything, it feels more complex and complicated than my own life in so many ways. And it makes it such a heavy read, but that's what a lot of literature and books, that's why people read a lot of realist fiction. And what they get out of that, they're dealing with all these aspects of humanity, and about our society, and interacting with others is, and it feels really valuable. And although it's a series, so like ancient Greeks used to do tragedy, and the idea is that, you know, you have a catharsis at some point by the end, that, you know, you learn something about yourself or society, and we can improve and be better. And so I am looking forward to seeing how this all plays out, because right now it's just like it sets up so many tragic things, and we haven't you know, had this whole end to the arc and the catharsis. And so as a setup is great, but for this grand sweeping tragedy, you know, I definitely am eager to continue to make my way through. But I'm curious if you have any thoughts on just the way this feels maybe different from other fantasy reads, or just you know, does not read like the typical escapist kind of epic adventure fantasy.
Yes, I mean, so like you said, there's obviously clear fantasy elements. Like there's freaking serpents that are talking to each other. Like there's ships that are literally talking. Like a guy has a carved wrist, you know, jewel that, or, you know, piece of jewelry that is talking to him. Like it's insane stuff. But the way that Hobb delivers this is so, by the time we finish this book, like it literally does feel real world adjacent. Like I can totally picture why all of this stuff is happening. And like, even down to like the cultural stuff. I mean, like there's, like you said earlier about the Bingtown, like there's this old town, old time, like, I don't know, 17, 1800, like even in when one of the most interesting things is when the Rainwild trader comes for like collecting payment the twice a year,
Mhm.
and we get to see that interaction with Ronica and the and I forget what the Kupris family, is that the
Yeah,
ones
yeah,
that
yeah,
come?
yeah.
They both know that they're speaking to each other in formalities for so much of
Mhm.
that conversation. Like they aren't really talking in a real way.
Yeah.
They're just saying things that their families have been taught to say for years. Like, and then all of a sudden, like there's this time where both of them know, okay, like the wall comes down. We're talking woman to woman now. Like, why is that? Why? Like, it's the older people that don't want to let go of the cultural
Mm.
traditions, and it's the reason that a lot of the conflict happens in the book is because um Ephraim won't trade up the Rainwild. It's because like
Yeah. And
it's because
stubbornness,
Ronica
not
won't
willing
like
to. Yeah.
yes, like okay, Ronica always like I mean, and even Kefria too is just like you were saying about getting rid of all the debt. All they would have to do is say yes, but they're so stubborn in that like
Yeah.
we haven't presented Malta as a woman yet, so she can't do this. Okay, go
Yeah, but
present her as a woman.
also
Like
the
get your
rain.
family out of
Yeah,
this.
but also the Rainwild traders are stubborn and set in their ways as well. Like they don't have any give in their contracts. Like, oh, like this family who's for many years has been paying back the debt with the interest, and they've been good people with us and friendly with us, and always honoring us. Like, we can't even one time give you a little break. Like, we can see Ephraim just died and you're going through a tough time, but no, this is the contract. It's the money or the blood, and just like the lack of give there, the holding to tradition, just yeah, really interesting, and also very true to life. Just um, you know, with real life contracts and people just not having
Yeah.
flexibility and needing to live up to them by the letter of the law and the contract. But the fact that in this situation where that they can't give the family a break, like it does make the Rainwild people out to be very cutthroat, and just one more seemingly very tough, realistic aspect to this whole narrative. Oh
Yeah,
yeah,
so I mean, as far as it compares to, go ahead. Oh yeah, well, I guess we'll see. It almost feels to me like Ronica is like she worked herself into another corner because I think she's about ready to just like send Malta off. Like you said, like I think she was, but she decided earlier in the book before this stuff played out with the dream box and everything, she decided to step back and let Kefria start to learn.
yeah, yeah,
And then some other hard stuff comes, and she's like, I already made this decision. I have to see how Kefria handles this. But I feel like if Veronica was still the one that was like in charge, she'd be like, cool. I kept telling you not to do this stuff, Malta, and you
yeah,
did it anyways. So now you need to go
yeah,
learn. But
yeah,
now she can't do that
yeah,
because also on top of all that, Kefria asked her to step back and let her
yeah,
mother her daughter. Like,
yeah.
so
No, I
Veronica
think
is again in
yeah.
this hard position.
But you mentioned something very interesting with the family dynamics, and Chatty mentions change as a theme in the next books. But I think we do get a sense like Veronica is making an effort to actually involve Kefria more, and she's realizing that she had sidelined Kefria and didn't let her into the family business so that she could be an apprentice to her, and that she was maybe over controlling and didn't realize it. And so we see glimpses that by the end she is trying to involve Kefria more in a legitimate way, and that Kefria is also trying to step up and be less of a doormat, and both against her mother, her daughter, and Kyle. And so she's realizing, oh, when Kyle's away, I can control things at home. So like, I think we are getting a sense that a lot of these characters realize they need to change and are making an effort to do that. We saw that with Althea. We kind of get glimpses of that throughout with Wintro, who's going just through this personal identity crisis, where can he live by the precepts of the monks and be out in the world with and so he's dealing with all of that, and I'll be continually interested in seeing how he evolves and reconciles his religious beliefs with the practical realities of life. Like seeing him enjoy the company of the crew, like at some point in the middle of the book, was so nice. Like he was starting to become respected by everyone, and then he had that tragic moment. Like Hob just like sometimes just puts a knife in and twists it, like where he sees the bear fighting and he thinks it's rigged, and he just says it out loud, and he didn't even have to, but he says it out loud as they're leaving, and he angers the sailor, and then of course evil Torg tries to force him to go fight the bear, and he says no, and then his friend Mild fights the bear and gets destroyed. And then everyone hates him again. Like Hob was just really cruel because Wintrow was starting to become part of the crew, and then she just took that away from him. And the way she has Wintrow going through so many of those moments that almost feel metaphorical. Like she had him walking around some towns just to look at the architecture, and in both cases, in one place, like the city watch was beating him up because he wasn't where the sailors were supposed to be, and then he tries to do it in Jamelia City, and he comes across the slaves, and then he basically gives last rites to the dying slave, and then gets accused of killing the slave and gets chained himself. Like how puts Wintrow through the ringer of like, oh, you had this sheltered existence in the monastery, but like this is real life, and it's just brutal. It's just absolutely brutal. But I was just so invested in that, and feeling bad for Wintrow, but at the same time feeling like, okay, Hob's putting him through this, I think, to evolve and mature and in interesting ways. But it was rough. It was rough, a lot of that.
Yeah, it's kind of
oh goodness, yeah. The finger thing, him losing his finger, and people not even giving him the medical care for that. Like the fact that he has to deal with psychopath Torg on the ship, and for some reason Kyle just lets Torg do whatever he wants on the ship is brutal. And the tattoo, oh my god, like as a reader, I'm like, okay, like Kyle's he's gonna get Wintrow out of the prison in time, and then Torg didn't even tell Kyle, and so oh my god, Wintrow gets the slave tattoo. Wintrow, I felt like if I was a kid in that situation, I would have had the same thoughts, like, oh, this isn't real, this isn't gonna be happening, someone's gonna save me, like my father's gonna come, and then no, like sometimes you don't have control over your life. Like Hob is sending this message to Wintrow that like sometimes terrible stuff happens and bad people do bad things, and it's out of our control. Oh my god, the tattooing was so brutal, and then him getting put up on the auction block, like it felt like
we were literally all being enslaved by his father.
Oh my god, just brutal. All of those things, like Hob puts Wintrow through the absolute ringer in this book.
Evil Torg.
Evil Torg.
Torg sucks. I mean, there's a lot of characters that suck.
I didn't need Torg, like, to add agita, to add stress, and like I already had a few characters in here who are doing that. Like, to me, Torg was the one thing in this book that just went too far for me. Like, it wasn't believable that this idiot psychopath would be given so much authority on the ship. Like, it would have been too obvious to everyone, and it was to some people. But like, I didn't need this. Like, it was just giving Wintrow more trouble that I thought like he had more than enough to deal with without, a bully, like a murderous bully on the ship. Yeah.
I read that a little differently. I actually read it as Kyle just somehow being more insulting to his son by not doing this stuff by himself. Like, he was just like, you're not even worth my time to give trouble to. I'll just have somebody else give trouble to you. Like,
even practical. I think you're right about how he's letting Torg do whatever to Wintrow because Kyle doesn't care. But like, Kyle's fairly practical and he cares about the ship and the economic success. Like, it doesn't seem like a practical decision in terms of just the other crew being unhappy to give so much authority on the ship to Torg. He doesn't even try to pretend to be like a responsible, good, like, first mate or whatever he was on there. Torg was a little much, but he did. I think Hob wanted some extra conflict and just deal Wintrow extra suffering in some way that needed a bully on that ship and the journey. And I personally just felt like it was unnecessary. That it was the one thing that just didn't land with me really. But yeah, still added lots of conflict and tension for Wintrow, and that aspect worked for me though.
Oh yeah, toxic masculinity. Chaudia's comment was certainly. I mean, that was Kyle's bread and butter. Like, I mean,
oh my god, yeah,
he knew what was best. You couldn't tell him otherwise. A woman couldn't make a decision. It was silly for Althea to even think it was absurd for her to even think she would get this ship. Like,
and the toxic.
It was hard to read sometimes.
And the toxic masculinity around his own son, Wintrow, of, Wintrow is this very sweet nature. Like, he doesn't want to inflict violence. He doesn't want to be part of violent things. Like he's constantly insulting Wintrow and saying like he needs to live up to being a man and to harden himself. Yeah, there's so much toxic masculinity around how he was treating his son. Just brutal at some points, like calling Wintrow like a woman, I think at certain points, and really leaning into toxic gender norms, which is yet another aspect of this book that felt very true to life and real world adjacent. Hit really hard. Yeah. Oh yeah. All right, any characters that we have not really talked about?
Not that I can think of, really. I mean, we kind of hit a lot of the Vestrit family. We touched on Brashen. I mean, we don't really know much about the Rainwilds yet. I mean, there's a lot I'm sure we're going to learn in the future, but they're still kind of mysterious. I mean, we don't know a whole lot.
Oh, wait.
Paragon.
Okay, Paragon we haven't talked about.
That's true.
I was drawn into Paragon from the very first lines we get from his perspective. Like, wait, what is this perspective from? Like, what was this perspective from? And then we just get fed over time the bits that we need to understand the situation, that he is this live ship who's just been sitting on this beach for years, all alone, very lonely, and kind of just going a little bit insane, as probably many people or beings would in that situation. Had some sort of tragic past with seems like a really good first captain and then a terrible second captain, who then we just get hints. I hope we get more of the story of what happened to the Paragon, but like people just say Paragon went mad and killed everyone, but it seems like the second captain was a terrible father, and that Paragon, I got the sense like that he was connected to the kid, and that the kid wasn't being treated well, kind of like a Kyle and Wintrow situation. And that Paragon got very angry, and maybe the kid was killed by his dad or something bad happened to the kid, and that sent Paragon off the rails. But like we just get hints about all of that. That's my guess about kind of what happened in the past. But now Paragon is just such an interesting character. He's very untrusting, and so when like Brashen and Althea come and Amber come to befriend him, like he at first loves interacting with Amber and then distrusts her, and like he's very quick to just assume the worst. And so he's just this fascinating character who's I was very drawn to Paragon. Just such an interesting non-human POV we get. Like that's the kind of stuff that this fantasy aspect brings to the story that couldn't be done in realist fiction. That is just so fascinating. It's like this being who has lived for so many years at this point, many generations, and just is this sentient ship who is now possibly facing this. He's kind of like just wants life to end, and he's worried that someone's going to buy him and just like burn him up or chop him up, and he's just wondering what that'll be like. Like all these things from his POV are so fascinating, and I've been hoping like throughout the book that Althea and Brashen would just take over Paragon, and like that would be their live ship, and like and that like the title of the second book, mad ship. Like I'm like, ooh, is that like, is Paragon at the heart of this? Is Paragon the mad ship, or is Vivacia going to be kind of driven mad by all the crazy stuff that's been happening in her young life, and by being controlled by Kenneth? And is she just going to go off the rails? Like I'm so curious about what that title's referring to, and Paragon's, what role Paragon's going to play going forward.
I mean, yeah, Paragon's emotionally like a 7-year-old. Like, I mean, the minute he's given attention, like in a loving way, he's like all about it. He's like, oh my God, like someone's talking to me, like this is amazing. And then like
Yeah.
if they say one thing, he's like,
Yeah.
he just starts pouting, and then he's like,
Yeah.
why do you care? Like, what do you want from me? Like he does, like you said, he doesn't trust anybody. And I mean, I think it's even mentioned like later in the book. I don't remember who it's by, but that the Paragon is almost used as a warning sign for what could happen if the track of what's going on
Yeah.
with Vivacia continues to
Yeah.
happen, because we already see
Yeah.
signs
Yeah.
of the Vivacia being driven crazy. She's like, I can't deal, like all of these deaths on my, like I can feel all of these deaths. I think the main reason that obviously the live ships don't trade in slaves is because they can feel those
Yeah.
emotions through the
Yeah.
lizard
Yeah.
wood. Like it drives them crazy to think all these thoughts. And it seems like something similar happened to Paragon, and he just snapped. Like
Yeah.
he's like, okay,
Yeah.
everyone's dead. I'm just gonna kill everyone. You're gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, totally. And we got Vaughn here saying, I read the trilogy almost a decade ago, and it remains remarkably fresh in my mind. Still one of the best I've read. Yeah. Reads that don't leave much of a mark for me. I could start forgetting a lot of the details within a few months. And I look back at books that I marked down that I read 10 years ago, and sometimes I remember almost nothing, but maybe a little bit of like what the experience was like. But yeah, real mark to Hobbs' depth and the quality of everything, that it could be fresh after a decade. And thank you for this comment too, that you guys are bringing fresh insight for me. I've read scores of books since that I barely spared a thought for. Yeah, this is the type of thing that I was thinking about days after. When I wasn't reading, I was really thinking about it, and like just ruminating about it, and then after I've been thinking about it, and yes, and thank you for that kind
Yeah,
comment.
thank you.
Yeah, Chadia said the trilogy made me very anxious while reading it. As Ben said, almost too much, but somehow I still love it. These discussions help me understand it better too. Oh, thanks, Chadia. Yeah, it's so tense reading it. Like you feel like very traumatic things could happen at any moment, and then some do, and it's worse or just as bad as you might have imagined. And I read a lot of more hopeful style books, or less grim books, and it's an adjustment. Like this month, I read Jade City and Ship of Magic, and both of those are grimmer, bleaker reads than I'm used to, and so I'm leaning into that right now, and just gotta kind of embrace it and go along for that ride. Because yeah, like I read also this month, earlier in the month, I read one of the lightest like adult fantasy books I've ever read, Tress by Brandon Sanderson, where the tone is so light. There's constant jokes being cracked by the narrator. It's very hopeful. Not many very traumatic things happen, even though a couple things like that do. But and so it's just so different. The variety of reads that we can have within just the current adult fantasy genre is staggering. And I do like the variety, like going for something lighter, and then something that'll just rip your heart out repeatedly, like Ship of Magic. I think it's good to just have these varied experiences, and to maybe like I'm happy that I'm challenging myself this month with this read and Jade City, because yeah, they're so rich, even if they're bleak and grim a lot of the time.
Yeah, and like, so I didn't have a channel yet when I had read Farseer. but I did read it with what we call the Hobies Book Club. It's just kind of a couple of friends that I have in real life, and we read it together. And even just like I I I don't know how I would feel about the Realm of the Elderlings going through it by myself. Like I feel like
Hmm.
these discussions help me unpack so much of what I didn't even like realize I needed to like process emotionally. Um, but yeah, like take it back to your point. I'm freaking picking up like a Dresden or a Discworld after this before I get to the next book in the series. Like
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah,
need to laugh a little bit.
yeah. No, I'm reading a palate cleanser for myself right now. A new series I wanted
Oh,
to
are
try
you?
out, Monster Hunter International, which is
Oh, I've
just
heard about that.
an urban fantasy, and the writing style and tone is in the Dresden mold. Um, so yeah, it's refreshing because I don't have to be ruminating about it when I'm not reading, and all this heavy deep character stuff going on that I'm relating to my own life. Like, no, it's nice. I'm doing that right now.
I love
Oh yeah,
to get
and
the toddy. I absolutely love listening to Derry talk about
yeah,
Discworld or Realm of the Out. Like you can just
yeah,
see and feel her
yeah,
passion for these books
yeah,
just exuding
yeah.
from her. Like it's amazing.
Someone who's read them so many times is just over many years. Like their experience of it is going to be so impactful, and yeah, that just comes off so enthusiastically with Derry. Shame, I think our stream time is probably in her nighttime over there in New Zealand,
Yes.
because I maybe we'll try to see about a time at some point that she could get on. But I know we've talked about maybe inviting other people on for the final chat for the last one, or maybe some
Like
some
the whole
veterans if they
trilogy.
want. Yeah, to but I like chatting with people about an earlier book in a series, really with only people who have read up to where I am, because it's
Yes.
it's not possible if you've read beyond to not spoil things, even if they're not giving direct spoilers, just with how you talk about certain plot lines or characters, your knowledge of how things play out, like it comes through in ways that are hard to inhibit, I think. So I'm it's really nice chatting with you where we're up to the same point. We haven't read these before, experiencing it for the first time, um, and so it's perfect right now, and for the next book too. But maybe we'll see if any veterans like Derry want to join us in wrapping up the trilogy. Oh no,
Yeah.
Chatty I don't think Chatty has
No, you
spoiled
didn't spoil
much
anything.
with some hints, but yeah, Vaughn says we need that variety. Yeah, I'm not sure I could live on a diet of Robin Hobb, but uh, every so often, I think it's that medicine that might be a little bitter, hard to get down, but is good for you nonetheless.
Yes. You and I are going through a lot of series. I mean, we're at the same place in Realm of the Elderlings. I think we're
yeah,
also at the same place in A Song of Ice and Fire for the first
yeah,
time.
yeah,
I just finished A Storm of Swords this month on
yeah,
audio. Um,
yeah.
I read Jade City. I'm going to be doing Jade War next month.
Oh yeah, we're in the exact same spots with all these.
That's
That's
kind of
funny. Yeah,
crazy.
we didn't organize that at all.
No.
But those are all really heavy, dramatic, hard hitting series. But I will say though that the actual experience of reading just most POVs and chapters in A Song of Ice and Fire, the writing style is different. It's like there's more humor worked into more of the dialogue and POVs. There's more lightness in a lot of the chapters of Song of Ice and Fire than with I think Greenbone Saga and with Ship of Magic. Like I said, I felt like some parts of Kenneth's chapters were a little bit of humor and comic relief, but besides that, it's dark, intense. There's not much humor strewn throughout that's keeping it kind of light. Like it's leaning into the heaviness, and Greenbone Saga felt the same way for me. Whereas a lot of heavier
Yeah.
reads like Song of Ice and Fire or First Law and Malazan too, like there's intentional a lot of extra kind of humor and lightness added in to I think balance out the darkness. But this just leans into the drama, the tragedy, the heart-wrenching aspects of it, and the tone of all the POVs is fairly dramatic and grim. There's not a lot of things for these characters to feel happy about or to joke about. Like it's like the most dramatic, intense moment in all of these people's lives and this whole society is becoming grimmer. And so, yeah, it's dark. And so a palate cleanser between some of these, I think is a good thing.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, and Amber, maybe one of the last characters we haven't talked about. That was a real mysterious character who came along late in the book, where Hobbs' descriptions of Amber, I didn't know she was like a human character at the beginning because she was very mysterious. But I thought a lot of the descriptions made her seem like she was wood or made of wood, or like similar to some of the descriptions of the figureheads of the live ships. And like Amber also is very strange. She's this foreigner. She's this amazing magical wood carver who makes these amazing wood items. And so she's just like a mystery wrapped up in an enigma. But then later, like when we learn more about her as she's conversing with Paragon, it seems like she is just a person, and because she doesn't know much about the live ships. Like I thought at the beginning that she was a live ship figurehead that had been quickened and like removed from the ship. That was my weird theory. But like towards the end, I thought that she'd like maybe that is the case, and she doesn't know she was like a figurehead, but then she was never put on the ship, or she never lived as a ship, and so she's trying to learn about live ships from Paragon. Because I thought there were some weird description things of her that made her look like and seem like not human or made of wood.
Yeah, she felt drawn to Paragon in a way that she couldn't even seem to like understand. But if I'm not mistaken, she doesn't carve in wizard wood, correct? Like you can't get wizard wood except for the Rainwild. So doesn't she just carve using a variety of natural woods? Like she's not.
Yeah, but she's like inhumanly good at using wood, which made me think like, oh, maybe she has this connection to wood because she was actually like a made of wizard wood at one point, like herself.
That would be wild. I didn't even think about
that. Yeah, I have no clue if that theory is just way out there and not correct. Unlike Gurm, Hob doesn't even give you the foodie descriptions. Yeah, there's not much of a relief from the drama in here, like at all, which is why I loved the stuff around Kenneth's charm on his wrist so much, because that was just like the tiniest bit of relief from the drama for me.
Yeah.
And some of the ways that Kenneth was not understanding the people around him was a little bit fun. And the way that I just eventually saw Kenneth as, almost this figure of chaos, like he's just this force of chaos, and he has this kind of good luck around him. Just became a figure that I was just like, okay, I'm just going to go along for the ride with Kenneth and see what havoc he causes. I was enjoying his chapter so much.
It's so. It seems like when people see his flag, like he's being recognized. Like it seems like at least the Pirate Isles are aware of what his goal is. Like they're like, oh, it's the what, I forget what his flag is. Like, but they're like, oh, it's
the Raven,
flag.
the Raven flag.
Yeah,
oh my god, him without even realizing it, just doing what Sorkor wanted him to do, and freeing the slaves from the slave ships, turned him into a just an honored celebrity in the Pirate Isles. Like it was just completely lucky that he ended up just getting everyone's attention and respect and honor for doing that. And I just love that he's doing these honorable things almost just by mistake, and then getting celebrated for it. And
I mean, when he
now
walks
becoming
off the
this,
ship into that town and he thinks they're all about to like attack him, and they're like,
yeah.
"You just brought all of our people back." He's like, as I said I would. Like, like, you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
I also love that he's very clever and street smart, and like he was ready to be ambushed when he went back to the brothel in what's the town?
Oh yeah.
What's the town?
I
Divvy
forget the
Town,
name of the town.
where
Oh,
it's like
that's right,
his
Divvy Town.
base,
Yeah,
his
yeah.
base of operations, and he's ready to be ambushed, and he like takes care of all the guys, and gets lucky a little bit that he didn't die, and Edda helps him out, but like he has this cleverness to him and the street smarts, and he's a good fighter. So like he has these aspects where he's competent and clever, but he's also just completely clueless. It's just this mix of this chaotic character that I'm loving, and the way that he treats Vivacia so respectively at the end, like that made me enjoy Kenneth's character right there, where he was being very respectful, the opposite of Kyle, and Vivacia is charmed and like acting like
man.
a charmed teenage girl in that moment.
I was so irritated.
Yeah. Sorkor is the real hero. I love him. Yeah, like from going like a character that seemed like a nondescript side character towards the beginning to like this character who's like, ooh, he was a slave previously and has this passion now that his life he's now found his calling to end slave ships and to free slaves, and that became a really nice side character, I thought. And yeah, Edda being a badass. Yeah, Edda was a real hero in some of those moments, but just also an interesting side character with seeming, we don't get much of her backstory, but seems to have gone through a lot of psychological trauma, but
Definitely.
is using her agency, and she's not taking any crap from anyone now, but like her relationship with Kenneth also really weird.
Internal conflict. Yeah, like
Yeah.
with Kenneth, there's moments where Kenneth's like, like, I didn't know I needed this awesome woman in my life. I didn't know this woman could be so useful. Like, I remember him thinking something along those lines at one point. And then at some points he's just like, go away. Like, leave me alone. Quit loving me. Like, quit trying to help me. I'm a man.
Yeah, but
it was very interesting.
She also seems almost not healthfully attached to Kenneth. Like she doesn't seem to see any of Kenneth's flaws, but almost like, okay, this person has always been like interested in me and returned back to see me and now rescued me from my life in Divvy Town. And so like she has this like unhealthful attachment to Kenneth.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, it's interesting. Like that whole dynamic is weird and interesting, and that's the thing with this book. Like, you can't easily wrap your mind around like, oh, this character is in this box and their relationships, these people are exactly like this. Like there's constant things that are happening that are unpredictable, and because there's so much depth to these characters, and they're not just going to go the likable way like we mentioned before. So yeah, frustrating sometimes, but never predictable.
No, certainly not.
Vaughn's got to go. Thanks for being here, Vaughn. You added a lot to the discussion throughout.
Thank you for participating.
Yeah, makes me want to reread. Oh yeah. This seems
like hopefully you can catch the next one as well.
Have a great day, Vaughn. Happy reading to you as well. All right. Anything else to wrap up before we go?
Not that I can think of. I think we almost covered everything that I can think of that I wanted to touch on. And I'm just excited to get to the next one.
Yeah. Things are about to get crazy. Just that title alone has me so on edge for what might come. Like so much happened in this book. Like this feels like it could have been like its own trilogy or its own standalone book. Like we went on a long journey with so many.
The other thing I'm interested as to how all this is going to tie into what's happening
Ooh. Oh yes,
up north.
with the duchies. Yeah. Oh, it's that the little mentions of the duchies were so funny to me because they view the duchies culture as barbarians. Like there's like they don't even have civilization up there. Meanwhile, they're the ones that have slavery as part of their society.
And like living
and
off land and in the sea is such a just like, is that not barbaric? Piracy?
Yeah. Yeah, so there's the pirate, like a huge chunk of their civilization is just like the pirate isles, and then they have a monarchy which is totally fine with slavery, and so it's funny that it's just very true to life of the foreigners, who are we don't really interact with. They're the barbarians. They're the uncultured. Like people mention like, oh, Jamelia City, like that's the heart of our culture and art and beauty, but yeah, does not seem like they have the most civilized, unbarbaric culture here.
No, and then we know the people
yeah.
up north, so we know they're not like portrayed as being barbaric. I mean, they're more like normal people than
Brashen mentions even that like he suggests that he and Althea go up north to the duchies where they don't have such strict gender norms and like women can be sailors and be respected in a way that they can't down here. And so Brashen, is a little more experience of the world. He mentions that to Althea, and Althea's like, they're barbarians up there. And yeah, I am curious if there's gonna be any interconnections between the series, or if this is like almost its own side story that's kind of removed. I mean, probably have to assume that there's gonna be important overlaps and connections at some point.
With the amount of people that don't recommend skipping Liveship, A, for its quality, and B, for just the story itself, like connecting to the overall realm of the Elderlings, I was trying to figure out ways that it was going to tie in. Like, do the Liveships have some kind of like power over like the Red Ship Raiders? Does it have something to do with like foraging? Like, I was trying to figure out a way that it all was going to somehow tie together, but I couldn't figure it out.
Yeah, definitely a Rafa read and find out. But like so far, I was curious if there would be more connections like in this series or in this first book, but this is almost completely self-contained at this point, and just and it's not even too far away. Like it's on the same continent, but there's this other power or state like Chalced, which is between the duchies and like where Bingtown is in the satrapy.
Is that how it's set up?
Yeah, so like there's this they're not next to each other, but they're on the same continent, and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a continent, like that it's that far away. So it's fascinating.
Wasn't Burrich from Chalced too?
Oh, I don't remember. He might have been, because Chalced does border the duchies, I think, to the south, and Chalced
came from
Chalced's to the north of Bingtown.
I think somehow it was related to like the earring that he gave to chivalry that eventually went to, like, it was like his grandmother's. I think he was involved in Chalced somehow. So there's mentions. There's no direct connections in life from Ship of Magic from what we've read. Like they don't say any. Yeah. But they do make mention. So I don't know. That was the only other thing I don't think we touched on that I was going to ask you about, if you have any theories for that. So
no, nothing from me on the connections. But then the series of the Rainwild Chronicles, like now I'm pretty pumped to actually get into that one, because
I'm much more excited.
Yeah, the Rainwild seems like there's a lot of interesting stuff going on there, and like it's like a hostile place for like humans to live, and it changes like your body, and like bad stuff befalls you, but there's a lot more magical stuff going on there too, and so it has me intrigued for that series now. Burrich's grandmother was a Chalcedean slave. Ooh.
Okay,
interesting.
So
interesting.
Freed, I guess, somehow. I thought I remembered that having something to do with the earring that he had.
Oh yeah, maybe. Yeah, maybe it has to do with the ship earring, because they have earrings of like the ship that they go on.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Maybe. But do you have any predictions for anything that might play out or happen?
No, not really. I just the one thing I'm the most excited, or not excited, that sounds like the wrong word. I guess anxious to see what happens is with the whole Vestrid family. Like, what's going to happen when is Kyle even going to come home? Like, I mean, he is no longer in possession of his ship. So, like, what's going to happen to Malta? Seems like she has to be being forced to go away now. Althea has no idea what's going on with the Vivacia. So I have no idea what's going to happen, but I'm excited to see, where some of this gets taken.
Yeah, I have no clue what's going to happen with the ship situation and with Kenneth and Kyle in the same ship now. Like, I am just interested to see them interact more, because I think Kyle has met his match in Kenneth, and I was scared Kenneth was going to die at the end of this one, but seems like he's gonna pull it out and survive by the skin of his teeth. But now I'm just interested to see now what happens with Kyle, with Wintro and Vivacia, and with Amber and Paragon, and what else?
Yeah.
We have the Vestrits at home, like how that's gonna go. Yeah, so many things are going to be playing out in the next book. Yeah.
Well,
I'm very
we'll
excited.
be getting to it this next month.
Chatty does say the earring represents that she got free, so that is a little
so
bit.
That was why it was so important to Burridge.
Is a little bit of a connection there. Very nice. Oh man, this is now giving me a lot to read this year, because I got these three books, but that might be getting me back into the Fitz books too, because it's been a few years since I read Farseer. So after this, then got to go on to Tawny Man. There's this series is such a monster of a series, but it's like such a pillar of the modern fantasy genre that I'm so happy to be starting to get through it again.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been awesome. I feel like I have a much better grasp of what's going on. That's why I love to do these live discussions. So.
Oh yeah, it's awesome. Thank you so much for suggesting this and for coming on the channel. This has been the start of my live streaming, so it's been going hopefully okay. But yeah, it's been great. Your insights have also helped me get some different views into some things that I was not seeing before, and it's just great to bounce thoughts off someone, because a lot of time, like, you don't actually fully articulate a thought until you put it into words and speak it out loud. And so just speaking some of these things, it's like coming to, ideas and conclusions in a more solid way that maybe you just didn't have before, because they were more just like, cloudy thoughts.
Yeah, I agree.
In our mind.
I agree 100%. And
glad you both liked it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks,
thank you,
Chadia. Thanks for being Thanks for being so active in the chat the whole time. You were great. And yeah, didn't spoil anything that for me. So perfect. Amazing person in the chat.
Well, I believe the next one we'll be doing on my channel, so I'm gonna have to figure out my live, how to get that rolling. But thank you to everyone in the chat. Thanks to Ben for having me on, and I'm really excited to see where this all goes. So
yeah. All right, on to the Mad Ship next.
Oh man.
All right, I'll see you later.
See you guys.